Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, goeiemorgen, jiayanu, khushamdeed, and all the other words that Shahzad uses. Welcome to World This Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shaza Hashmi, your host. And unfortunately, Shahzad cannot be with us today, and I'll tell you why. This is because of the viral thing that's going on, because of the fluctuation of weather. So what we usually do is because it's so humid and hot outside, we usually always sitting in air conditioners in our rooms, and then we go to air-conditioned cars, and workplaces are air-conditioned as well. So we sort of accustom our body to a cold temperature. And then we have to move out without prepping our body for something, for a fluctuation in the temperature. We just walk into it, which is why we get sick, we get the flu, and we get these viral thingies and infections that are going on. And Shahzad is unfortunately a victim of that today. And we hope that he gets well soon and can join us. For you guys out there, please take care of yourselves, of your surroundings, of your kids, of your loved ones, so you don't have to suffer from this. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday. Alhamdulillah, we're beginning a new week with full energy and zeal and zest like we always do, and we're trying to bring our vibes and energy to you. This topic under discussion today is so important, and I have to say it's so commonly discussed, but also so commonly misinterpreted, or let's say taken for granted as well. But before I talk about this, let's take a look at the top stories for this hour. Dr. Arif Alvi takes oath as the 13th President of Pakistan. Chief Justice of Pakistan, Mian Saqib Nisar, administered the oath to him. Congratulations to the President-elect. We finally have the 13th President. And the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls on President Arif Alvi and felicitates the President on assuming office. Well, these were just the top stories for the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce what we're talking about today, I think it's time to go on a very short break. We will quickly be back. Stay tuned to PTV World. Good morning.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is World This Morning, and we're back after a short break. And today, as I mentioned, we're talking about something very important. So what usually happens is we air our show 5 days a week in the mornings, and we don't do on weekends. So because of that, we sort of missed out on a very important day on Saturday. That was the 8th of September. And it was Literacy Day, which is observed almost all over the world, and it is declared by UNESCO. So in 1966, in the 14th session of the General Assembly of UNESCO, the 8th of September was declared as the Literacy Day all around the globe, and Pakistan, being the responsible and, let's say, a loyal member of the UN, observed it with full zeal and zest, of course. Talking about education and literacy, the theme basically this year was literacy and skill development. And that is what we're discussing today. That is what we're talking about today, the dimensions, different dynamics of this. And for that, our team, our producers have actually lined up a great, set of guests for us. All of them have been sort of educationists or analysts in their own capacity, and they have different point of views. And that is what, without further ado, I should be introducing them because we need to discuss this. And as usual, we don't have enough time, but there's so many things that we need to cover. So I'm just rushing into the introduction. On my right-hand side, we have been joined by someone who's been on the show before in different capacity, of course. This is Ms. Shafia, who happens to be, an educationist, also a childcare coach. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being here.
Walaikum assalam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely our pleasure. Next to Ms. Shafia, we have another expert on skill development and rural skill development. This is who is also an educationist as well in his past experiences. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome on the show, Mr. Izhar Hunsai. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Next to Mr. Izhar is Ms. Sheena, Mrs. Sheena, in fact, who happens to be an educationist as well, and you were a principal of a school as well.
Yes.
And we're pretty sure that you have enough knowledge and expertise in this department. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Next to Ms. Sheena, we have with us, joined by a retired Colonel Naeem Ashraf, who happens to be a writer as well as an analyst. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you very much.
So as we have discussed that we are discussing about the literacy day that we sort of missed on 8th of September, we're sort of reliving the Saturday today because it was such an important day that we could not, let go of this day without talking about it. So let's start with Ms. Shafia over here. Ms. Shafia, Literacy Day. Before moving on to what the theme of this day was, I want you to define how literacy is different from education.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful and beneficial, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for having me on show.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
The question you posed, that what is the difference between literacy and education?
Yeah.
Literacy is actually the person who is able to read and write.
Okay.
We call that person a literate person. And I would like to add up the UNESCO definition.
Yeah, definitely.
In that, UNESCO defines the literacy as the person who can communicate, understand language, and to create and communicate. Whereas if we are talking about education, education is an overall development of a person, overall development of a human being.
Okay.
In a skill capacity, also understanding ethics, manners, and then overall employing applying those skills
In the right
in
direction.
the right direction, making the right decisions
Right.
at the right time, and contributing to society, country, and overall.
Okay, perfectly said. Mr. Izhar, the same question for you. What do you think literacy means?
Well, basically, as Shafia said, literacy is basically ability to read and write,
Yeah.
but education is much more than that. And education is, I think, the most important thing, which includes skills as well as a person's in our language, in Urdu language, the difference between insan and admi is
right.
education,
Beautifully said, yes.
simply put.
Okay, Ms. Sheena, the question is a little different for you. Now, whatever they said about literacy, these are the official definition of literacy as per the UN that they've mentioned as per Wikipedia, let's say.
Yes.
But who qualifies as a literate person in Pakistan?
Anybody who can sign
Okay.
qualifies for a literate person. But education is completely different.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, coming to you, Colonel Naeem, they've just mentioned anybody who can sign, is considered as a literate person. So where does education stand in this? So I'm pretty sure a lot of people living in the rural areas, I'm pretty sure they can make a signature for them because they're getting their ID cards and whatever. But if we are counting them as literate person, then let's talk, literacy rate is something else. Then the education rates, let's talk, is far below than the literacy rate, right?
Thank you. As all the honorable guests have explained, I would like to just clarify the two terms.
Okay.
The literacy is ability of a person to read and write, as they have said. To further elaborate, that is ability to read newspaper,
Okay.
ability to see the expiry date on the grocery,
Okay.
ability to read the prescription and medicine, and the necessary abilities to read and write.
Right.
When we talk of education, it has a very broad canvas.
Yes.
Yeah.
The literacy is the foundation of education.
Right.
Coming to the types of education, the informal education, which starts from the mother's lap
Yeah.
and goes up to the doctorate and fellowship,
Yeah.
and that is imparted by the society,
Right.
by the peers, by the parents,
Absolutely.
and there is no formal syllabus for that.
Okay.
Then we come to the formal education. The formal education is the set of courses, and the definition of education is the process of receiving and giving the information
Okay.
and set of syllabus that you follow.
Okay.
Now coming to the types of education, that is within formal education,
Yes.
you go for the technical education, you go for the higher education, you go for the religious education, you go for, so there are so many types.
Right, absolutely.
And the education term also involves your grooming and your
Yes,
training.
that's right.
And it is intended to make a person a useful citizen of that society.
Okay, beautifully said, Mr. Naeem.
Yes.
Now, you know, when we talk about the theme of this day, this year, the theme of Literacy Day, as declared by UNESCO, was literacy and skill development. So, let's say I can be wrong, but my understanding of it is, along with education, along with literacy, you are imparted skills that you can utilize to use your education in the right direction. So, maybe you can improve your lives and livelihood as well. So, let's start with you. What do you think? How imperative is literacy to developing your skills? And how do you think these are simultaneous?
Well, if we are talking about education, since we are talking about literacy, as I said earlier, that literacy is only reading and writing,
Yeah.
but actually education is absolutely a broader term.
Right.
If we are talking about imparting literacy, education,
Yeah.
let's say, I will quote my institute in that,
Yeah.
that how we develop the little one's skills in that. Since I'm a childcare coach also, and I run a daycare center,
Okay.
and I have a school. So what I practice, what we practice in daycare center and what we practice in our school, at the very early age, we start teaching our kids as activity-based learning.
Okay.
And the activity-based learning is basically a skill development.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what sort of skill it is.
Okay.
It can either start from kitchen, either start from daily chores, domestic chores, and slowly and gradually making a child understand her own responsibilities.
Right,
And
right.
once you tell them the responsibilities and all, and then slowly and gradually they understand the way of life, and then they start making tiny decisions, and those decisions can become the larger decisions
Absolutely,
later
yes.
on.
Well-
So that's what I believe, that's what we are practicing.
Okay, Ms. Jafi, you're right, but Mr. Azhar, I have a different question for you. We'll come back to that. But Mr. Naeem over here, the same question for you. How imperative literacy is to, skill development, and how simultaneous do these run?
Okay. Coming to the skill development, I was associated with it for 3 years, and minimum the literacy level or the education level to impart any technical or vocational skill should be a matriculate.
Okay, okay.
After grade 10, he can pick up the skills like
Yeah.
electrician, mechanic, air conditioning, computers, and so on, and civil, so on and so forth. The skill curriculum starts from 3 months and up to 3 years, and that is diploma of associate engineers, and for that, and that is equivalent to intermediate.
Okay.
So prerequisite, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to impart skill to any child
Yes.
should be a metric, and
Okay.
it is also prevailing in the country.
Okay, Ms. Sheena, do you agree with that?
I have a slightly, I would add to what Colonel Sab said. Literacy, when we're talking about literacy, literacy is a person who can sign in
Yeah,
Pakistan,
yeah.
right? But along with literacy, we have to develop their essential skills as well.
Okay.
And there are 9 essential skills.
Right.
The ability to read, the ability to write, the ability to comprehend a document and
Okay.
act on it, the numeracy skill,
Yeah, yeah.
the ability to think, the computer skills,
Okay.
then oral communication, then there are 9.
Yeah, of course.
So, but we are not focusing on those skills.
Okay.
We need to develop these skills along with literacy in schools.
Okay.
And in the schools, probably we are missing on this. Like, for example, we're teaching the children to read and write. Yes, we're teaching them to speak as well. But I think we need to have a separate, we need to have allocated time so that we teach the children, we prepare the children for life.
Okay, okay. Beautifully
We're
said.
not,
We
we're
prepare
not preparing them for life. We're
Okay.
not educating them. We're just making them literates.
Okay.
But education is broader.
Broader,
It's like
right.
a change. We have to bring a change in the attitudes of people. That is the ultimate aim of education.
But for that, we have to work from grassroots.
we
level.
have to work from grassroots levels.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. You have something to add to it?
Yeah, the same thing as I add up earlier, that the sooner the better.
Yeah.
Because when
Yes.
you start at early childhood age, as I said, that doesn't matter what sort of skills, tiny or big. So the same thing I will quote again, that even if you start at early age, then they have a decision-making power, and then they can make those decisions later on as at kind of subset later after matric, O levels, A levels, and then it's easy for them to understand what actually they want to do.
Okay, now, Mr. Izar, coming to you, since you happen to be a rural and development skill expert, am I right?
Yeah, sure.
So it's sort of a similar question, but in a different, let's say, dimension. So I'm pretty sure you have studied the people who belong to the probably downtrodden segments, or belong to the rural areas of Pakistan. And let's say they're not fortunate or they're not privileged enough to receive education. But maybe some of them are literate, some of them are not. But for people like these, what sort of skills should they be getting so they can probably, you know, be a responsible citizen and then earn enough livelihood for them?
Well, when we say people living in rural areas of Pakistan, which is like almost 60%
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the population, well, they're already skilled in many ways, but these are like self-acquired skills.
Okay.
They're not formally educated, but they are self-learned people. When we go to rural areas,
Right.
we learn a lot because our population obviously has not waited for the
Yeah,
government to come and educate them,
Yeah.
but they have acquired education, acquired skills, life skills, and everything. But what they need to do really is to, you know, the private sector, the government, the civil society, they need to work together.
Right,
And-
absolutely.
And,
That's right.
and try to impart skills that are useful in early age, as Shafia is saying, in order to enable the people to make the best use of their environment, their resources,
Yes.
live a healthy life, live an honest life, make an honest living. We are an agricultural country, so the first thing that comes to our mind is that let's impart agricultural skills, you know, to enable people to make the best use of the natural resources that
Yeah.
God has given us.
Yes, absolutely.
Make the best use of water, another natural resource. Make the best use of, you know, training your children or raising your children. That's also a skill.
Right.
Parenting, good
Yes, yes.
parenting,
It is,
for
it
instance.
is.
It is a skill.
Very important.
Yeah.
So a whole range of things. The trouble is that we have made it very easier for ourselves to just define literacy as the ability to just
sign,
write your name.
Write your
This
name.
needs to
Right.
change.
Right.
You know, as Sheena is saying, we need to really redefine literacy.
Literacy, of course.
And also need to redefine education. We
Yes.
generally consider education as the ability to acquire a degree or a certificate.
yeah.
No.
Okay.
Ability to actually live a good life. You know,
Quality of life. should be-
quality of
Quality
life.
of life, that's
And so that's education also. One of the things that I think I must mention is that in many countries, developed countries, the technical education and the mainstream education are integrated. In our country,
Right.
this is not so. So maybe we should reconsider.
They're totally
That we should-
180 to each other. Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Azhar, we'll come to that. We'll come to the education standards of Pakistan. But I have to say, I absolutely love when you talked about, you know, how private and public partnership should be done. Everyone here agreed.
That's right.
So one of the things that you guys identified was that there should be vocational training and skill development in schools. So let's start with you, Mr. Naeem. You guys have been part of schools and education systems. So the things that you have been part of in your personal experience, were there enough, let's say, skills that were being given out to the children? Or was there enough, any sort of vocational training that was being given to the children apart from the curricular studies that they were doing?
Okay, I will be using a term TVET,
Okay.
Technical Vocational Education
Right,
Training.
right.
So the requirement as per the census of 2015 and 2016, because this results of 2017 and 18 is not yet available, and if it is available, it has not been evaluated yet.
Okay.
But as per the census of 2016, we need 20 million TVET graduates
Okay. Wow.
for Pakistan, and we have only 1 million.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
We produce hardly we enroll 1 million every year,
Right.
and dropouts is 40%.
Oh, wow. The dropout rate is 40%.
And now
Okay.
linkage with the industry. Who are the TVET graduates? They are middle level managers.
Okay.
There is an engineer on the top who designs and monitors.
Right.
And then there is a worker, the informal economy worker,
Right,
the
right.
laborers, right? And who translates the design and architecture to the worker is the middle level TVET,
Okay.
normally known as supervisor,
Supervisor, right.
right? And they are most essentially needed because he is the person who is on the floor
Okay.
and he is responsible for the output.
Right. Okay. He
So
monitors everything basically.
their
yeah.
dropouts is 40%.
Okay,
And
wow.
the skill. Now there are certain bodies which are working to regulate. The apex body is
Okay.
the NAVTEC,
Okay.
National Vocational Technical
Yeah.
Training Commission,
Commission,
and
okay.
it is directly under Prime Minister Secretariat.
Okay, perfect.
And then you have 5 TEVTAs, Technical Education and Vocational Training, and all provinces have these
Different,
TEVTAs.
okay, yeah.
But unfortunately, their syllabus is not related to what is required in the industry.
Right.
All right. So modern trends in the industry needs to be bridged
Right.
with the vocational training.
Okay, okay.
Like the modern countries and most developed countries,
Yeah.
you cannot do anything unless you have certification in that.
Right.
Even to become a barber, maybe
You need
in
to be
the
certified,
USA, you
right.
maybe need 1 year certificate. And to
Right.
become a driver in Norway, you need a 3 years training. So it's not only driving, you need to know map, you need to know different languages, you need to know so many things. So to acquire any skill, you cannot just start working, you know.
Okay.
So it has to be, you have to ensure the quality. So
Definitely.
skill, the technical and vocational skill is very, very imperative, but it should be related with the current the trends in the
Right,
industry.
of course, of
right?
course.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Sheena, do you
I
agree
would-
with that? Do you have
yes,
anything to
I would
add
like
to
to add to it. We need to separate the two skills: the soft skills, which have to be, which start right from the preschool level,
Yeah.
and we continue with them. Then the others are the technical skills that Colonel Saab is talking about. In other countries, in some of the countries, they sift. Here, probably the anybody who has money
Yeah,
can go for a degree,
of course, yes.
right? Can go for a university education. Whereas in certain countries, they start sifting. They start sifting right from the beginning. Anybody who has the aptitude for something, sifted out. Then goes the next level, sifted out. Next level, sifted out. So only the people with aptitude,
Right.
with real
Yeah,
sense,
yeah.
they go into the university education. Whereas we don't do that. We have our educational degrees are receipts for the money that we are paying.
True, true, true.
So it's
Right,
it
like
needs
you said,
change.
without having the aptitude for it. We're
Yes.
just doing it if you have the amount of money
Exactly.
to get the degree.
And in some countries, they also have these technical skills, training for these technical skills in the high school.
Okay.
So they check out the aptitude of the children, whether they are suited for a particular profession or
Right.
not.
Okay,
So we need
perfect.
that in our
Perfect.
country.
Before we go on to a very short break, I need to ask Mr. Izhar and Ms. Shafia over here very quickly. When we're talking about vocational training, Mr. Naeem mentioned the dropout rate. Talking about the dropout rate, you both have been educationists in different capacities. Was there a quota for the people, the out-of-school children, let's say, or the people who were dropping out, to, first of all, to convince them to not do that, and then to, give them the right kind of education? Because I think it's very easy to complain or to claim for the government that you're not doing this, you're not doing that, but what are you guys doing?
I will talk about my school, of course. So yes, in my school there are dropout rates, and because of the fees, because of some other circumstances, and sometimes the mother is not able to look after the children
Right.
at home, and but they are unable to pay for the daycare center also. But what I do for them is, especially for the teachers, we have a special quota. We give them very, very discounted fee rates, so they can pay those fees and they can bring their children in daycare center, so they can continue their job. And same is the case with the school kids. If the mothers or the parents are unable to pay the fee, we just charge them a very low amount of fee so that the child can come to school and it does not hurt his or her dignity also. So that's what, yes, we have a special quota for that.
Okay, perfect, Mr. Izhar.
Yeah, there are many factors for dropout, as Colonel Saab mentioned. Just focusing on technical education, he already mentioned that there is a disconnect between what type of training is given, technical training is given in our technical institutions,
Right.
and what is the need in the industry, in the economy, broader economy. There is a disconnect.
Okay.
And also there is an opportunity cost for a person. If a person is doing something useful, then that person weighs the options whether to spend time, 2 years, whatever, and what would he get. Normally what happens, because most of our economy is in the informal sector, people start acquiring skills through Ustad Shagirdi in an informal way. And we need to really look at our context in Pakistan and say, how can we bring this informal system of technical education and mainstream it? I mean, if you go to the open market, you will see very bright young kids, you know, fixing your motorcycle,
Absolutely, yeah.
fixing
That's
your
right.
mobile phone.
Yeah.
These people have never been to a technical institute,
Right.
but they need to there need to be reforms in a manner that that technical education is attractive to these young people.
Right.
So in addition to doing their practice, they also need to acquire the theory of what they're learning.
Okay, very beautifully said. I love where this conversation is going. This is such an informative session for me as well, I have to say. Well, let's go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. We have talked about the troubles, or let's say the faults, when we talk about the literacy in Pakistan. When we come back, we're going to talk about the proposed solutions. Stay tuned to PTV World. Good morning.
Basic education is the right of every child. Today, some 168 million children are in child labor, deprived of education. Every child, without discrimination, deserves access to a quality education. Basic education is the right of every child.
Welcome back to World This Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just say this is a makeshift literacy day today. It's Monday, of course. The literacy day was observed on the 8th of September, but we're sort of reliving it, and we have discussed the problems and faults that withstand our system. But I want to restart the discussion with, when you're talking about the fiscal year 17 to 18, the budget allocation from the government to the education sector was roughly around 902.7 billion rupees. Now, for a country, for Pakistan, who's 70 years old, my personal belief is that I don't think it's enough. Of course, you can differ, your opinion can differ. But before we talk about the stats that we've discussed, I want to mention that I was reading a report of the World Economic Forum just yesterday. And if I'm not wrong, World Economic Forum said that out of a list of 133 countries, Pakistan was positioned at 125 in the bottom 5 when the countries were evaluated on the education quality and skill development. I mean, how shocking is that, Mr. Naeem?
Okay, thank you again. As per the census of 2015-2016, the literacy rate of Pakistan stands at 58%.
Yes.
Right. And out of this 58%, 70% is male and
Okay.
48% is female.
Wow, okay.
Budget allocation on the average of last 7 decades is
Yeah.
2.8%
Of
of
the GDP.
gross domestic product. And share of education in 2016 was 2.2%. And I would say a thing which you mean, I don't know it is liked or not.
Okay.
It was a criminal neglect
Okay. Safe
on
to
the
say
part
that.
of past
Yeah.
governments.
Absolutely.
And on the average, then I studied the budget allocations of different countries.
Okay.
Right. And on an average, no developed country was below 5%.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that developing countries have to make more allocation, and the developed countries gradually, when your education literacy rate goes up,
Yeah.
your education allocation may reduce.
Okay. Okay.
And the the enrollment rate is 83%.
Okay.
And just imagine, we are a population of 200 million, and out of 200 million,
Yeah.
25 million children do not go to school.
Wow.
They have not seen the school.
Right.
And then we talk of progressing and doing
Becoming a
lot,
developed country,
this
right.
and that. So there is a need to start an emergency crash program on the education, because
Absolutely agreed.
without this, and more interesting thing, one more interesting thing is that education, it creates an awareness. And when there is awareness, you go for prevention and you do not go for cure. So your health budget will also reduce if the people are aware, they are
That's right.
educated,
Right.
they live clean, they avoid diseases. So there is no compromise. A country like Bangladesh has about 10% of their
Right.
total national budget allocated to
Allocated to
education.
yeah,
you know.
education, right.
So the maximum budget allocation from national budget for education and went to 2.3%, and it was, I think, General Musharraf's
Okay.
era. But on an average, for last 70 years, on an average, our budget allocation from national budget for the share of education was only 2.8%, and it should be between 5% and 10%. The present government has to declare an education emergency.
Wow. Now look at that. We are standing at 2.5%, you said? 2.5 for
2.8.
2.8, okay,
right.
and we should be between 5 to 10%. Wow. Now, before we move on to how we should improve the literacy rate in Pakistan, I want to ask Mr. Izhar, what should we be learning from our neighbors that, came into being after Pakistan and who are probably smaller in size, as compared to Pakistan, but are doing better in terms of literacy and education?
Well, before we go to the neighbors, we should learn from within Pakistan.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I come from the northern areas, Gilgit-Baltistan. Literacy rate, despite being 1/3 of our national income, the average income per capita income in our area is 1/3 of national income.
Wow.
But our literacy rate is 2/3 of national
Absolutely, yes.
whatever
Yeah.
rate. So, and I'm very shocked that a country of 200 million and the actual figure, 25 million people,
Right.
children out of school. In fact,
Yes.
this figure may be, actual figure may be higher than
Higher,
that.
yeah.
30
I've
million.
heard for
That's right.
literacy rate for Hunza is 99%. Is it true?
It is true, because
Wow.
this is what I'm saying, that the reason is not just supply of education. The reason
Quality
also is demand for education. Okay, unless there is demand, and demand comes from where? Demand comes from people.
The attitude,
create-
right.
Yeah, demand comes from parents. Our National Assembly is full of chaudharis and whatever feudal lords.
Yeah.
They will not create demand. They will not increase your budget from 2% to 10%.
Right.
You need to really refigure the whole thing. If you want to participate in the global economy, the 21st century demands for workforce and type of skills, there is a whole range of disconnects, between the people who are being prepared for the economy.
Right.
So a whole range of things need to be done. Of course, Bangladesh is doing better than Pakistan. Of course, I mean, I was going to say that, maybe we should discuss this further, that our population, we are a young nation.
Yeah.
And this is called demographic transition. This comes only once in a nation's lifetime.
Yeah, definitely.
Where the bulk of our population is 60%. And if this bulk of population is aged without getting education and skills, we will become a failed state.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, look at Somalia. Somalia, and look at Switzerland, look at Asian tigers. Asian tigers, what they did was that they invested in their population when it was young.
When it was young,
Okay, and now
we
they
get
became
fruitful results in the end,
and now they are reaping what is called the population dividend, the demographic dividend.
And you've actually sort of compelled me to come to this point. Mr. Naeem, for all of you as well, this is, according to a report of UNDP in the latest, this is in world history, Pakistan has the largest percentage of young people. 64% of the total population falls under 30. And 29% falls from 15 to 28 age group. So when we're talking about these young people, these are basically the future of Pakistan, right? A few years down the lane, these are the people who will be shaping Pakistan. So I have different questions for all of you in this. First of all, let's start with how can we ensure quality education for these people so that in the coming few years, we know we're moving towards a better Pakistan?
Right. As it is said that quality has a price, and we were just discussing the budget. To ensure the quality, first of all, we should provide education.
Right.
And then it should be a symmetrical single system of education.
Okay.
And all the resources should be allocated to promote the realistic curriculum.
Right.
The realistic curriculum.
Okay.
Realistic curriculum means we should read our own history, we should read the latest modern sciences,
Okay.
we should read the modern technologies, and instead of reading and feeling pride in the Arabs and the invaders who came from Afghanistan, we should be talking about our own heroes.
Ourselves, of
we
course,
should
yes.
be talking about Abdul Sattar Idi, Mr. Jinnah, Allama Iqbal, and all these martyrs who gave their lives.
Right.
We have a large number of heroes in our own country.
Absolutely.
And to ensure the quality, it has to be a realistic and applied technologies.
Okay.
Applied technologies. What you need, what country needs, the energy of all the youth should be focused on that.
Okay.
Otherwise, 64% can also prove negative,
Negative,
if
of
their
course, of
energies are not channelized
In the right
in a
direction.
productive and focused approach.
Okay, very beautifully said, but I'm so sorry we're very short in time. We hardly have like few seconds left. Any of you, on behalf of all of you, a message for the youth of Pakistan, let's talk about the 64% that we're talking about, so that they do feel responsible for being the future of Pakistan. This is your camera. Anyone, please go ahead.
Well, I think I would say our youth is very responsible. When I compare my youth with the current youth, they're more responsible.
Okay,
And-
wow.
but
That's
they're-
new.
they are. I think they should really be the master of their own destiny.
Perfectly said.
They can change their destiny. They should really not depend on state services or NGOs or Nokri.
Yeah.
They should really think of themselves as their own bosses, future bosses, and make sure that they, the whole world is theirs.
Yeah.
And if
Okay.
they want.
Okay, very beautifully said. Ms. Shafia, very quickly. You have very few seconds left.
I just want to say that if we lay a strong foundations of education right from the beginning, our kids will keep building on it. Sooner is the better.
Well, perfectly said. Ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about the education systems in Pakistan, literacy and skill development in Pakistan. I hope it was as informative for you as it was for me. So in the end, I would like to reiterate, please take care of yourselves because of the fluctuating weather, and try to avoid the infections and viruses that are going on lately. And if you have anything to add to us or any feedback, write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, World This Morning without a G. On YouTube and Dailymotion, World This Morning. And the repeat is going to be at 11:05 in the night. Till then, ladies and gentlemen, till the next day, in fact, take care. Good morning.